The following is a Productions original series.
Hello and welcome to Walk and Roll Live. I'm Doug Vincent, along with Addie Rich. Our podcast is dedicated to amplifying the voices of the disabled community. I am a polio survivor, and Addie
has cerebral palsy.
hasn't changed.
No, that felt very much like one of those books where, and then a story where the next person goes.
And then, no more and then.
Yeah, and then there was her. Yeah.
So, have your visitors moved on their journey?
They have not.
They're still here
until next Monday.
Gotcha.
But the way back is plotted. So I'm already sad because I like it. We play games. And we hang out and tell funny stories, mess with each other. So I'm already a little sad to know that the countdown is on.
And just in case we have some listeners who aren't hanging on every episode, Addie's sister Amanda has left her job of 6 years.
Yeah.
And taken her son on a around the country journey. Is that safe to say? And at some point going to get settled somewhere new, to be determined.
Yeah.
And get him in school and then go on with that chapter of her life.
Yep. Signed up for online school today. So school is nailed down for, Auntie's the teacher. We have to get this figured out. So signed up for school. Figured out, I think they're going to take about 12 days to go back. They took 6 days to get here, but I'm keeping their dog for a bit. So they're doubling down on the time it's going to take to go home, but they're going to Missouri and the Wizard of Oz Museum and all these different places. So
good news about keeping their dog is they have to come back again.
Oh, for sure, right? I'm like, I will ransom your dog. But they have literally experienced some of the hottest summer I've seen in living in. Right now it's 96, and when we were in Savannah, it was topping close to 100 in Savannah, which is crazy because you're more on the water. So.
Yeah. Wow, I'd have to look at a weather map to see if the what do they call the Gulf Stream? Is it?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's taking a different trajectory because it's been unseasonably cool here.
Yeah, you guys
all of July.
We're holding on to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I hope. But usually, it comes on and you kind of get used to it. By the end of the summer, when it's 110 and 15, you can kind of stand those days a little better when you've gotten used to it. But so I'm just waiting for.
Well, and the humidity murders you. We were talking about that when we were in Savannah because we're out walking around and whatever. You can't drink as fast as you're sweating, almost. Yeah. So you have to be real careful. And we took little detours into shops and things to get cool, but. You just don't even realize it either until you feel it growing down your back and you're like, gross, I am suffering.
Well, and here, because there is no humidity, you don't realize you're sweating because it dries so fast.
Right.
Exactly. And then the next thing you know, you're getting a headache and
yeah, feeling woozy and gross. Yeah, for sure.
So you have to remember to drink, stay hydrated. What was the visit in Savannah like? What were some of the highlights?
So it was fun, but we did have, coming up soon, my sister's going to be a guest, and it'll make more sense, but things we were talking about, obviously, when we went on this trip, we went on the trip a little bit with, a more mindful look at, what's accessible, what's not, what makes no sense. Well, Savannah was established in the 1700s, 1773 or whatever. The cemetery I took them to was from 1773, because the people ran to Savannah when the British were, having arguments with them. But so everything is cobble and brick and things, and they haven't modernized those. I mean, certainly
it's part of the charm.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
And they've kept a lot of the history there. Obviously, if you go up further away from the water, because most of the settlement, which makes sense, was at the water because they're bringing in trade supplies and things. If you head up, then there are more sidewalks that make sense, more modern sidewalks and things. But to really see the charm of the stuff and the stuff you want to see for historical purposes, yeah, you need some buff arms to push the walker through there, or my sister would just get straight in and be like, take my arm, and she'd carry my walker. Because I was not moving speedy. And it's funny. But my Apple Watch got a workout, and you know how it pings you and says, "Good job, you've done so many steps." My watch was like, "What are you doing? You've made like 1,500 steps, and you normally only go 400. What's going on?"
Your watch is freaking out.
My watch was like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
And then just to top the whole experience, we had a fire drill
in the hotel.
In the hotel, and we were on the 5th floor, and you can't use the elevators. So I've never been so fast down 5 flights of stairs. Again, my sister picks up the walker.
Follow me.
Holding that. My nephew is kind of like standing in front. So if I murder anybody, it's him.
Yeah.
But I mean, thank goodness, the fire trucks and everything did come. So it wasn't like we did that for nothing. We did it for something. But then, of course, my sister, who's been in the hotel industry for a long time, like emailed them and was like, "Yo, bad plan for disabled people."
Yeah. So it was just a drill, or was it actually for something?
No. Well, we never fully got the answer, but I mean, it was enough that the fire department came and they made us stay outside until they checked it out. So it wasn't like, "Hey, we're practicing. Hold on to your hats." So, but like I say, in all those things, we kind of view it differently, because if I didn't have my sister there and I couldn't get down, like, why did you put me on that floor? And like we said, maybe we should have been more forceful with it, but we never thought we would have a fire drill.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a room slightly down from ours that had like a doorbell and everything, so obviously was for like hard of hearing. So what if nobody's alerting them? They obviously can't hear the fire alarm. So there's just different things that we saw. So my muscles are still sore from the 5-flight fury, because you can't go slow. You're not, I literally had people laugh at me. So finally, I'm just used to like leaning on the wall and being like, "Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead."
That small of a staircase that holding people up?
Like, I'm literally the caboose that I'm holding people up.
Yeah.
So I mean, we just kind of not waited without hurry, but we let the big chunk of people pass.
Yeah, definitely. You want to get out of there, but that's kind of good that it maybe forced you to examine some things and
realize I need to be in a better shape for sure.
Yeah.
My little heart was like bing, 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 bing. It got to work out. So,
well,
how was your week?
Glad you're safe. Good. This was the 1 week a month where we do the push to the pier in Long Beach.
Cool.
Yeah. So I think it was some traffic issues that people were running into, but I got there. It was like a miracle. There was an open handicap spot.
Wow.
Which I had gotten the ticket for.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, and I got, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I found out that I did have to pay it.
Okay.
So I've reached out to the Attorney General of California to get some clarification on whether a local municipality can just ignore state ordinances at will, because they can just do that, or and where is the line drawn? Where's the line drawn? What else can they just ignore without impunity? Hopefully it's not murder. Imagine, I mean, that's, of course, for effect, that's an exaggeration.
That's extreme, however. Yeah.
But I didn't realize that laws were just open to local municipalities just being able to pick and choose. I didn't know laws were a la carte, but evidently they are.
Right?
Well, so.
A la carte laws. Yeah. Great.
So we'll find out. And I also learned today, won't mention any names, but she got her ticket waived, and a couple other of us didn't.
Oh.
So, I mean,
why?
I don't have the words. Why? At least if we're going to do this, shouldn't it be applied evenly? That if you get a ticket, nobody gets,
Yeah.
And I sent pictures of my van with a ramp and, and the actual verbiage on the ordinance from the California state website. And got denied, as another gentleman did. So, just got questions. But anyway, had a nice day. Had pushed the pier. I was sore yesterday. Today's not too bad, but...
you pushed it.
Yeah. And I don't think I've ever had my forearms kind of feel as sore as they are today. And elbows, so... But it means I had a good workout, so good.
Yeah, that's what I was saying to Amanda. I was like, I didn't know I had a muscle right there in the front of my leg. That feels so weird.
And I was, I don't know that with the state of my shoulders, a lot of people went and did another round because they just go about a mile down the, the boardwalk kind of thing and the bike path. And then they come back and then everybody's like, let's go again. And I'm like, I'm going to hang out here. And like next month, I think I'll do it. I just wanted to see, post one day if it would really aggravate.
Yes. Yeah, test it.
The pain and everything. So, just soreness from, the workout, nothing that like aggravated anything else. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that cardio-wise, I did fairly well for somebody who doesn't really get a lot of exercise.
Good job.
Yeah. I thought that would stop me before anything else.
Right.
Just like, I need some air. But,
right?
It was all right.
Oxygen.
And then I did have a doctor's visit this week, and this is another thing. And I just got back from kind of going out hunting. But one of the things is I kind of wanted to try like Ozempic or Wegovy because I've been trying to lose weight, and I even have got. I mean, this is kind of an ongoing thing for years, and I've started with just doing the easy things like cutting portions and. And over the years, I've gotten rid of, like I used to drink fruit juice. You think fruit juice is healthy, and then somebody says, oh, there's a lot of sugar in there. Okay, got to cut that out, and I've cut back on my soda, cut back on, so many things like that. And, to no avail. And I've actually started like cutting back more recently over the last few months, even like rice altogether and potatoes altogether, starches. Yeah, exactly. And so... And I'm not getting any bigger, but I'm not shrinking like I'd like to. Just a few pounds, 20, 25 pounds, just make it easier to transfer, take some of the weight off my shoulders and all that. Well, and then I have ChatGPT, I just tell I want to do intermittent fasting. Yeah. Want to eat after 2 meals between 11 and 5. Yeah. And with the goal of losing maybe a couple of pounds. I forget what I told her, either not even a week, I think, but maybe a month, and have a goal of losing 20 to 25 pounds. And it prints out this whole 2-week menu for me of meals and everything. And that's where I got irritated because it's all 60% of it is stuff that I already eat. Have a broiled chicken breast and some asparagus. That's what I eat,
Yeah.
So I mean, what else am I going to do other than just not eat at all?
Yeah.
So
water, Doug. That's it.
And water. Yeah, more water. Woo, I'll just melt away.
Yeah. No,
so we'll see.
Know.
But my doctor was resistive for some reason that she didn't really articulate other than she can't monitor my weight because I can't get on the scale because they just have a standing scale. And she said, well, maybe you need to find one where you can get on with your wheelchair. And I kind of lean over to her and say, I got an idea. Why don't you get one? And she's like, oh, no, they're expensive. They could be thousands of dollars. Like, nope. I've checked on Amazon. They're under $500. Then she had to scurry for another excuse, so.
Well, that's just crazy because you can't be the only one that cannot get on a scale.
Right. And that's what I said, and she said, well, I only have 2 or 3 other clients that are in a wheelchair.
Duh.
Yeah. Well, maybe to have more.
Yeah, for sure.
But so she had the idea to go to a veterinarian.
I was going to wonder if that was what her thought was.
So I went to the veterinarian today, stopped at one here near me, got this big, nice animal hospital, and asked them, and she's, well, let me ask management. So she disappears into a room, comes back after a while and says, oh, no, they don't, sorry, we're not going to be able to do that. And I'm like, well, do you mind if I ask, like, what was the deal? And she said, well, you get a kick out of this. She said, I didn't think it would be fair to our animal patients. Wouldn't be fair to our animal patients. What does that even mean?
You're in their way.
That means no, but we have no reason whatsoever why it's a no, but we're just going to say no. But
where to go? Pull it out of the quiet.
Exactly. So in the continuing the conversation with her, she did say that it's not like a scale that I could just roll on. They have to, there's like at least a step like that you have to get up on it. So, okay. But she did say, how about at the VA hospital? Oh. And I'm like, yeah. Oh. So, of course.
It's being helpful.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We had a nice conversation. I wasn't an asshole about it, but
No.
but I wasn't. Although I maybe wanted to be a little bit, but anyway, I didn't. But yeah, that was a good suggestion, and so I've reached out to some of my friends in the vet community, and we're going to check at the PA hospital and see what we come up with. So,
what about like Casa Galena or something?
Yeah, maybe I'll check with them.
That's another thought.
Yeah, I'm going to put that on the list. That's a good one. Absolutely. All righty, I think that's all I got.
Well,
yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, at least that's all I got that I want to bore people with.
That you want to harp on? No, I have a harp too, but we'll save it.
Okay. Next week?
No, after we listen to our episode.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you to D. Smith, our author friend from last week. Yeah. Appreciate that very much. His episode did really well. Really well. Probably the best first week in at least the last 10 episodes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. Good job.
He was all the characters he brought along and the spirit that he had. It shows. It makes people want to listen. Absolutely.
So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Got a few new subscribers on the Push to Peer too. Shared it with everybody that was new there, and maybe have some potential guests and some potential like deep sea fishing partners. Got some stuff coming up that we're working on. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So coming up today, we've got Liv Kneller, your friend.
Yep.
So
my friend.
What's the thumbnail version of her before we get to the interview?
Well, so she is a young lady who has had a lot of interesting medical events, I would say, happen in her life. That one which kind of stuck around and was uncared for, I guess. And then once you sort of started getting some care, COVID hit and things happen. And COVID wasn't a one and done for her. And it certainly sort of threw her body into some long COVID issues. And it's now turned into other ailments that are long-term and changing her way of living, I would say.
Good tease, as we call it. All right, we'll get into the whole story right after we hear from our friends at Ugyar Professional Training.
At Ugyar Professional Training, we know that your greatest asset is your team. Investing in their development, knowledge, and happiness is essential for your business's success and growth. To achieve new heights, it's important to hire intelligent, talented individuals and empower them to excel in their areas of strength and passion. Ugyar is committed to transforming your employees into happier, more productive, and fulfilled individuals. When your team thrives, your business prospers. Wise leaders understand that providing team members with opportunities to shine in their strengths unlocks untapped potential. Elevate your team with Ugyar Professional Training and witness the growth of your business. From the Ugyar Professional Training Studios, you're listening to Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories.
Healing starts to play its part. In this journey we unite, shining with a glowing light. Insight found in every voice. Together we make our choice. Strength and wisdom grow within. This is where our tales begin. Walk and roll live, we stand so tall. Breaking barriers, breaking walls.
Another week, another episode of Walk and Roll Live. Every week we usually spend some time with an individual and give them an opportunity to tell their entire story about their disability. And you don't get that chance many times. You don't really sit down and have a half-hour conversation with even the most important people in your life. So we do it here. So if anybody has the chance to listen, they, I think, can get some healing from it. They can learn from it. It helps with awareness, helps the person who's telling the story heal. And I believe that other people who are listening to it, there's a wealth of information in it. So let's meet our guest for this week. We'll let you do a self-introduction.
Hey, my name is Liv Kneller, Olivia, but I go by Liv. I live currently in Plymouth, Massachusetts, but I grew up in the UK. And my disability is not totally defined, but I have dysautonomia, POTS, and a variety of other issues as a result of long COVID.
Very good.
You've had a big adventure with
Yeah.
with
Oh,
lots of
yeah.
stuff and stuff.
And I think that's part of the reason why we want to have you on, because of the nature of your disability and how you came to it, right? So
Yeah, it's
I'm going to
a
let
different experience.
I'm going to let because you have a relationship with Addie, and you guys have been talking for a while. I'm going to kind of hang back a little bit today and let let Addie
I
drive
get
the
to be the
ship.
boss today. No, I'm
Doug
pushing
said,
Doug out of the way.
"You take this one."
Yeah.
She seems like a handful.
No, not at all. I said, hey, this is my turn. So we'd love to hear a little bit about your story. Like you just said, you grew up in the UK, you're living in Massachusetts now, but we'd love to hear about, where you grew up, what life was like when you grew up.
I had a pretty unusual childhood. I'm very lucky that I had the childhood that I had. My parents, both academics, and so from a very young age, I was traveling all over the world. My mom's American, so we were flying to the US to see family. We were um, traveling to different countries because both of my parents were doing field work, and everyone knows how expensive childcare is. So they were like, yeah, we'll just bring her into the field with us. It's fine. And then moved to Palo Alto briefly while my parents were on sabbatical when I was like, 16 months old. And then when we moved back, my parents split up. My mom and I moved to the south of England. And then, it was just kind of a big stretch of being in and out of boarding school, traveling to different places with my mom. We lived in Africa for a little while in Ethiopia, and going to all of these places and then coming back to suburban England and trying to explain to my peers what it was like. And they just had no way of grasping it. So from a very young age, I was very precocious. I was around a lot of adults and I just had seen a lot more of the world than most people. So people thought I was really weird.
Right? And then you were like, no, I'm not weird. I'm just seasoned.
They were kind of right, but I'm okay with it now.
Right?
Good.
Hey, we're all weirdos in our very own way.
Exactly.
So things started to shift in your teen years when you got your back injury. Can you explain how that came to be, and then like what happened and how that was taken care of or failed to be taken care of?
Yeah. I was super, super active as a kid. I have ADHD and the H was real strong back then. So I was just super hyperactive, bouncing off the wall. So I was very physically fit. When I was 11 years old, I was in my front yard with my best friend, and someone broke into a house down the street and the alarm was going off, and I wanted to know what was going on. So I climbed the tree in my front yard and I was leaning out just a little bit to try and get the right view, and I fell and I landed right on my tailbone. And at the time, we didn't really know how bad it was. And also there's not much you can do for tailbone injuries. You can't really stick a Band-Aid on it. You can't set it back in place. Exactly. So the unfortunate part was that I was running track at the time, and I had discovered I was pretty good at hurdling, to the point that the varsity coach at the time watched our modified practice and, was like, you know what, why don't you come watch the varsity practice and see how we do the hurdles, and maybe next year we can bring you onto the team. So that was super exciting. But then I hurt my back and I could not hurdle anymore. So that was sort of the beginning of not being able to do things. And then as I got older, the pain was just more and more consistent. In the beginning, it wasn't all the time. But then, as if you leave injuries not taken care of, they
quick question.
get worse and worse.
Quick question. So
Yeah.
when you fell out of the tree, did like emergency services come? Did you go to an urgent care or anything like that?
No. So my mom is
Okay.
very much the unless you're bleeding out of your eyes, you're probably okay kind of person.
Yeah, my parents.
And she has, now apologized because hindsight's 2020. But no, I never even went to see a doctor for it, not for years. So, because I honestly, like I said, I was raised to think that you just kind of walk it off, you power through it. Unfortunately, that kind of screwed me over a little bit because I didn't get any help with it for a long, long time. And by the time I did end up seeing a doctor, it was because I had walked out of a physical therapy session. I mean, and just in serious, serious pain. They'd used a TENS unit on my back to try and alleviate some of the pain. I wasn't touching it. I went to go pull my car door shut to drive home because at the time I was like, sure, I'll drive myself home. I'm in the worst pain I've ever felt, but that's okay. And something popped in my back and I passed out. Woke up, called my mom briefly, and she sent someone to bring me to the hospital. And then I had an MRI done and they called me and the doctor said, you have, this is verbatim, an impressively herniated disc. He was like, I don't know how you're walking around right now. But unfortunately, this doctor told me that I was young enough. I was probably 19, 20 at the time. He was like, you're young enough. It'll heal on its own. The part of the disc that has poked out will just sort of dry up and you'll be okay. So for right now, we can do epidural injections. We can give you steroid shots to help with some of the inflammation. And you just need to be careful with what kind of exercise you do. So I trusted that. And because he had told me that, then for years afterwards, when I was in so much pain and it was getting to the point where I lost significant mobility in my left leg, there are a lot of things I couldn't do. Even just, like sleeping was painful. I had to sit in specific positions, especially when I was driving. I couldn't lift heavy things. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't do sports. But I was like, okay, well, he said it would heal on its own, so it'll heal on its own, right?
You're like, I'm going to be patient. But he didn't know how long it had been that you'd been with that pain too. So he's assuming like it's maybe an acute injury and not like from an 8-year-old injury out of a tree, right?
Exactly. And I think part of that's on me. I didn't advocate for myself very well back then. And I think also, especially being having any kind of disability and, chronic pain, any kind of serious permanent injury like that, it's pretty difficult to get people to understand what it's like every day. So eventually I moved to Massachusetts and I was like, I've had enough. I ended up in the hospital again in the autumn of 2023. And I was like, I cannot keep doing this. I'm in my late 20s. And every time I go to the hospital, people are looking at me and they're like, you're too young for this. I'm like, oh, I'm cured. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your input.
So I found a surgeon, a neurosurgeon, and he did some scans and he said, all right, let's get this thing out of you. So my surgery was scheduled for February 14th.
Valentine's Day. What a gift.
Yeah. It was so exactly what I wanted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey man, if you thought it was going to fix, you were like, if I wake up, this is the best Valentine I've gotten.
Exactly.
And this is in 2024 or this is
2024, February of 2024. Yeah. So I had actually just moved into my new apartment a week before. It had been a crazy whirlwind week. My mom came to stay here for a few days to take care of me, but my surgeon had assured me, he was like, you're definitely going to be sore afterwards, but you should be able to bounce back pretty quickly. I'd give you maybe 2 weeks and you can start going back to work with restrictions. Mm-hmm. So they tell my time. I was working as a youth trauma counselor. So pretty hands-on job, very, running around with the kids, being physically engaged, sometimes having to do restraints, things like that. And so definitely needed to be mobile. Mm-hmm. And I'd sort of been powering through the pain up until then. But they, morning of the surgery, the surgeon told my mom, he was like, all right, we should be in for about 45 minutes to an hour. So she's sitting in the waiting room and an hour passes by, and then 2 hours pass by, and then 3 hours pass by. And she finally goes up to the receptionist and she's like, what is going on? Where's my kid? So they'd opened me up and realized that the disc had calcified. So they couldn't differentiate between disc and bone. And they had to x-ray me while I was on the table to determine what parts they needed to get rid of. And they couldn't cut it out, so they had to chip it out. There was significant damage to my nerves, and so when I woke up, I was in so much pain. And I was like, okay, this is probably just what it's supposed to be like. The doctor called my mom and explained the situation. And so she got me into the car and was bringing me home. And she had to be the one to explain to me that things had been a little more complicated.
Was this an outpatient procedure? Or no.
So, yeah, I was in the hospital for 5 or 6 hours total. In hindsight, and my surgeon has admitted this, probably should have stayed overnight, given
So
how much
you
pain
were
I was
in and out in the same day for a surgery
like an
on your
hour's
spine.
procedure.
Yeah,
Okay,
and it shouldn't. I think it was because initially it had been anticipated to be an in and out, and they weren't. They hadn't prepared hadn't prepared a bed, and so they sent me on my way. And then for the next 3 days, I was in the worst pain of my life, and I was like, this was a mistake. I would rather go back to being in, having an 8 on the pain scale to what this is, because this is the worst thing I've ever felt. And it was really, really rough. But I'm going on, a year and a half later, and I'm so glad I had the surgery. It changed a lot of things for me. I have permanent nerve damage. There's nothing that can be done about that. And I lost a lot of my muscle in my left leg. And it's, I can't hold it in the same way that I hold my right leg anymore. And I'm never going to be able to lift heavy things. I'm never going to be able to, go on long bike rides. There's certain sports I'll never be able to do again. And I will sometimes be in pain, but it's nothing in comparison to what it was before. So big relief.
Permanent princess.
Yeah.
Right. But as we can imagine, like with something that you thought it was A, and you'd kind of created this way to mentally cope with A. Yeah. And then you're going to head to B, but you thought B was not, the road to B was not that way. Obviously, there were some mental health issues. So can you talk about those and kind of what being kind of chronically ill and wanting not to be chronically ill did?
Yeah, and I'm a huge proponent of being open about both physical and mental health. I think talking about things like this makes people feel less alone. And yeah, chronic pain and being disabled has a serious impact on you. And I think it depends on your lifestyle, it depends on who you are as a person, it depends on your pain level and your disability. But for me, when you're in pain for years and years and years, it weighs on you, and it makes it hard to live your life, and you feel like you're kind of a shell of a person a lot of the time. And I feel like I missed out on so many things when I was, in my late teens, early 20s, because I physically couldn't do them. And I think the catharsis that came from having surgery and then that intense recovery and coming out of that, and then, sort of going back to work and trying to go back to my life, realizing that I could have fixed this years and years ago, had I received the right advice and maybe stood up for myself better. I think that just hit me really hard. And, I'd been struggling with anxiety and depression since I was a teenager. And last summer, I kind of hit a wall. I guess you could say it was kind of a nervous breakdown. I think a lot of things hit me all at once. And just like the dam broke. And so I went inpatient, and I'm so grateful I live in Massachusetts and I have health insurance and I have access to that kind of care. So I know everyone doesn't. And then I did an intensive partial hospitalization, so like full day outpatient program for 6 weeks. And therapy all day, every day is it's a kick in the butt. But it does kind of force you to confront things and accept things about yourself, and the whole radical acceptance thing of you can fight back against the truth, the reality for as long as you want, but it's still going to be there. It's still going to be that way. So end of August, early September, I came out of that, and I was like, all right, I've got my back surgery. I've done all of this therapy. Things are going to be great from here on out. And life said,
you were right.
but wait, there's more.
It said, hold on. Now, at that point, had you had COVID?
So yeah, I got COVID for the first time. I foolishly went 2 years without getting it and thought, oh, I'm probably immune. I was getting all the vaccines. I was wearing my mask. I was being safe about it, but I was like lulled into this false sense of security. First time I got it, it was the winter of 2022. I got it over Christmas, which was awful. I was pretty dang sick. And so that took me out for like a week and then recovered from that. And then the following Christmas, so Christmas of 2023, I got COVID again. And that time it was my Christmas present from my dad. So thanks for that, Dad.
Yeah.
And that was significantly less. It was one day of feeling really awful and then bounced back pretty quickly. And then the end of last summer, I got sick again, and at first I thought it was just like a summer cold. But it turns out, no, 'twas COVID for the third time. And I think my body said, and we're done. This is where we're cutting it here.
Part ways and show you what it can happen. So you got that. So that would be like 2024 summer, correct?
Yeah. So September 2024.
Okay.
So before the surgery, yeah?
After the surgery, yeah. So I had the surgery February of 2024, and then that, third round of COVID was the end of the summer when I was coming out of
so like 6 months later.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
You're on a 6-month plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But so how did you notice something was, I mean, obviously you knew you'd had COVID, but then something in the end, like late summer, early autumn is going, something's weird. Like what started to kind of happen?
Yeah, you're kind of a COVID expert at this point. So that third one was different.
Yeah, and it was very mild. Like I said, it really just felt like a persistent cold. And I've done a lot of research, and I'm by no means an expert, but in my reading, what I've come across is that it doesn't even necessarily matter how sick you were with COVID. It's just to do with your immune system's ability to cope. And so it seems that the more times somebody gets COVID, the more likely they're going to develop, long COVID or, long-term chronic conditions afterwards, which I think makes sense. But, maybe it builds up in your system. Unfortunately, it's so new that we don't really know that much about it. We're still learning about long COVID, and there isn't just one individual test you can do. So to answer how I knew things were wrong, I started getting really dizzy all the time. And I've always had low blood pressure. And so I kind of just figured, oh, I'm not drinking enough water. Maybe I need to eat more frequently. I'm just like standing up too quickly. But then it started happening when I was sitting down, when I was lying down. I would go from sitting to standing, and my vision would go black briefly. And I would get so immensely dizzy, I would have to stabilize myself. And then I started to notice that during these moments, my heart rate would spike. And I had gotten an Apple Watch for my birthday, and that would pop up with a little thing being like, hey, bud, your heart rate just spiked from 65 to 165 in about 2 seconds. So what's going on?
Yeah.
And so I thought, I was like, okay. So, and at the time I had started taking the weight loss injections. I was on a GLP-1 injection, and I'd been on it for a few months at that point, had just increased dosages. And my wonderful roommate, who is a nurse, suggested that maybe, my body was reacting poorly to it. Maybe that, the dosage was too high, or I had lost, I'd lost about 40 pounds, and maybe that was having a significant impact on my body. So, and I didn't want her to be right for a little while. So I kind of pushed through and powered through it. But it got to a point where I had to have a coworker bring me to urgent care after work one day to get an EKG done, because I was really struggling and I was scared. And they did the EKG, and they're like, we're going to refer you to a hospital. We're going to send you to the emergency room. We're going to call ahead and tell them you're coming. So my roommate Kelsey drove me up. And we got there, and they're like, no idea what you're talking about. Never heard of you, never gotten a phone call. I watched the doctor at urgent care make the phone call, so I know she did. But I was like, you know what? Hospitals are slammed. emergency rooms are overwhelmed. It's the fall. At this point, it was November. It was the day before my birthday, actually. And so we went to go sit in the waiting room, and I passed out twice. And the second time that I passed out, it was sort of back to back. And, people called for help, and nurses came over, and they were taking my blood pressure, and it was really, really high, which it shouldn't be when you've passed out. And my heart rate was insanely high. So they're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and take you back and hook you up to a machine. And so they hooked me up to a heart monitor, and they could see that I was having these tachycardic spikes, but they couldn't, explain why. And they gave me IV fluids, and they gave me some anxiety meds, and it just sort of kept happening. And they said, well, we can admit you, but this is clearly a chronic issue, and you need to see a cardiologist. And so I did what any reasonable person would do, and I proceeded to check out and not go see a cardiologist.
I knew it.
Because
I'm still young and you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah, I just I don't trust doctors, especially after the experience with my back.
Yeah.
I haven't had a good time with them, and I felt very dismissed by the ED staff. And, in hindsight, they are, they're dealing with emergent situations, and they were right. There was really nothing they could do in that moment. I do think the bedside manner could have been a little bit better. And I do think also they tend to look at a young woman and be like, well, she's probably just being dramatic.
And then wait till you get old, because they'll just say that's a part of getting old and won't treat you. Yeah. And you're not alone on that either, because I could tell you a harrowing story, of what I experienced with my daughter, which was very similar. We won't get into it now, but very similar, where somebody called ahead to another emergency room where we were moving her to, and we get there and they're sending us away. Yeah. So the hospital care sometimes.
I really feel for healthcare workers. I feel for doctors. I feel for nurses. I feel for techs, because the system in this country is not built to support patients or the people who are working in it. That being said, there are some doctors who are just buttheads. So
Surprise.
I think it's a combination of the two. Yeah, it's crazy how making a bunch of money and saving people's lives gives you a God complex. I don't know, if anyone else had noticed that, but yes. So I left, went home, and decided that I was going to stop taking the injections. And I was like, okay, I don't need to go see a cardiologist because it's probably the injections. I'm just going to stop using them and I will be fine. Spoiler alert, I was not fine.
Self-diagnosis gone wrong.
I mean, who needs medical school? It's fine. I have Google. But
Right, WebMD, you got WebMD.
Things continued to escalate. So I had, a laundry list of symptoms, and I won't go through all of them, but the primary ones were the fainting, the tachycardia, the just like chronic fatigue. I was just tired all the time. I could sleep for hours and hours and wake up and then just go right back to sleep again. I felt like my body was just made of some immensely heavy metal. Like, it was just really hard to move around, and everything weighed more. It was harder to move my muscles, and I realized that I was just experiencing like a significant amount of muscle weakness, which was frustrating because at the time I was in the best shape I'd been in a long time. I was at the gym like 4 or 5 days a week. I was, I had a great workout routine that I was doing, targeting different muscle groups, and I was feeling really strong and powerful. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't. And so I definitely had a hard time with that. And I pushed it a little too hard. I kept going to work. I kept sort of powering through these symptoms. I would go to the gym still. And then I would just have these sort of like mini emotional breakdowns because I was so exhausted and I was doing too much. So in March, it hit a point where I had an episode while I was at work. It had been a really stressful week at work. We work, my building is like, there's an upstairs and a downstairs. Downstairs is sort of like a walkout basement, but it's the backyard kind of is like a little hill, which means that sometimes when it rains really hard, we get leaks. And unfortunately that weekend, the building flooded and nobody knew because it was a holiday weekend. So when we came back in, it was horrific. And so we couldn't keep the kids in program because we wanted to make sure we were doing mold testing and all that kind of stuff. And so we were taking them out on field trips. We were getting them ready for a field trip that day. And all of a sudden I was like, something is wrong. I can feel, I feel like I'm going to do before I faint, but it's just a lot worse than usual. And I did my best to just stay super calm, not let these kids know that, the kids I work with come from significant trauma backgrounds, and some of them have seen their parents overdose. And so I think seeing someone have a medical emergency in front of them would be extremely triggering. So I'm doing my best to keep it together. And I texted the work group chat and I let them know, and I was like, guys, it's only a matter of time before I'm going to pass out. So, if you guys can get the kids out of here as quickly as possible, I just don't want them to have to see that. And so they ushered the kids upstairs, and my boss stayed with me for a little while, and she was very concerned, and she was wondering if she should call an ambulance, but she couldn't stay with me because we needed to be in ratio with the kids. And so, she had to leave, go upstairs, and I just waited until Kelsey and another friend came to get me. And I was sort of in and out of consciousness for maybe the 15 minutes it took for them to come get me. And that was the moment where I was like, yeah, something's really, really wrong with my body. Okay. And I got very scared after that because I no longer felt like I was in control. Work was something that was incredibly important to me, and being able to be good at my job and having that happen to me at work in a space where I'm focusing on keeping other people safe really hit me hard. So I talked to my boss honestly, and she said, I'm very concerned about you. I think you should talk to your doctor about whether you should be at work right now. And I spoke to my doctor, and she said, absolutely not. What are you doing? You need to take medical leave. So I'm a case manager for multiple clients at my program. We're a very small program. We're, part of a nonprofit agency. We get funding from the Department of Mental Health, which that's not stressful at all right now. But it's tough because these kids rely on us, and consistency of care is so, so important. And the thought of taking this leave really pained me because I'd already had to take time off for surgery. I already had to take time off when I was in the hospital, and I was finally back in my rhythm. And managing cases is a lot of staying on top of contacting people and making sure the kids are okay, and talking to families and getting resources and just being there for them. And so knowing that I was going to have to sort of hand that over to my coworkers who were already working their butts off really, really bummed me out. I felt like I was failing a little bit. So I went on medical leave at the end of March, and things kind of tanked then. I think it's almost like when you're super, super busy and then you finally take a vacation and you get sick. It's like, I just sort of collapsed. Like when you take a souffle out of the oven too early, it just sort of, So then I went to go see my doctor, and she was like, all right, so something's wrong. I'm thinking it's autoimmune. We're going to test for MS. So that was intense because the test for MS is an MRI. And any demyelinating disease they want to look for on an MRI. I'm super claustrophobic. I've had multiple MRIs before. And so I'm very, very anxious about this, but I understand that it's really important to do. But then I have to wait for multiple weeks for an MRI to be available. And so I'm sitting that whole time thinking, okay, well, what if I have MS then? What does that mean for me?
It became the beast in your brain that's like, well, it could be this, or it could be that, or it could be this.
Yeah. And it could have been, cancer. It could have been a whole number of things. And so I started to spiral big time, and I was stuck at home.
Did you at any point suspect your COVID experience?
Not even remotely.
No, yeah.
And it took a minute. Someone suggested it to me. In the beginning, I think I just went full disaster mode. I'd completely lost my independence. I was even having trouble getting myself across the apartment to go to the bathroom because I couldn't stand up. So I'd lost my ability to leave the house, to do anything. So I'm just sitting at home scrolling and Googling my symptoms and panicking and just making things so much worse. And then I get my MRI done, and they're like, okay, there's no MS. But we're sending you, we're going to send you to cardio as well, because obviously you're having tachycardia and you're fainting, and we want to make sure everything's all good there. I have an EKG done, and then I go to the cardiologist, and before my butt's even in the chair, he's like, you have POTS. You have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And I don't know how much you guys know about that. It has become a lot more, it's frequently occurring in populations of people who've had COVID, especially women. And, people who are born female are just, it's impacting them a great deal. Dysautonomia in general, so issues with the nervous system, tend to be happening a lot. And so that was kind of the moment where we were like, all right. So if this is typically brought on by COVID, it could be that you have something else underlying that makes you more, predisposed to getting it. And then COVID just kicks your system into overdrive. But essentially, a lot of what was going on, a lot of my symptoms were just that my nervous system stopped working properly. My autonomic nervous system is supposed to be doing all of these things every day, just went, I forgot how to do everything.
Reset.
And I've lost the manual. So we're just going to guess.
Yeah.
So then from there on, it was just sort of a series of appointments and making a lot of phone calls and advocating for myself, and, got a diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome, and restrictive lung disease and a few other things. And I suspect that there's probably more on the list, but I'm less focused on getting a whole bunch of diagnoses, and I'm more focused on what I can do to sort of learn to live a healthy life the way that I am right now. Because, every doctor has sort of tried to tiptoe around it, but they've all kind of been like, well, it's never really going to go away. And, again, this is so new, the long COVID situation, that we're not sure if this is the kind of thing where 5-10 years out, people are just, they're getting better, they're getting healthier, and then one day it's sort of in remission. We don't know yet. And so I'm obviously staying hopeful for something like that. But in general, these conditions existed before COVID, and people who had them tended to have them. They were comorbid with other issues, and they tended to be lifelong. So I'm also preparing myself for that reality, that these are things I'm going to be dealing with for the rest of my life. And most days I'm okay with that. There are moments where I get really angry and really sad and sort of bitter. But for the most part, I'm just like, well, it is what it is. So might as well deal with it.
What's your treatment now? How are they treating these symptoms?
So right now I'm on so many different medications. A lot of them are supplements, because I discovered this actually pretty recently, about a month ago. I have IBS. I've had issues with my stomach and my digestion like my whole life. And it turns out that when you have severe IBS and it creates scarring on the inside of, your digestive tract, you can't absorb nutrients the way you're supposed to. It's sort of inhibiting your body's ability to just like suck everything that you need out of your food, especially if it's going through you super quickly. And so my body was really low on a lot of stuff. So part of my regimen now is just a lot of supplements. I've got like B1, B2, a whole bunch of other stuff like that I have to take because my body just isn't able to hold on to it. Same with sodium. I have to have consistent electrolytes multiple times a day. I have to be really careful about my hydration because my body won't hold on to sodium. And obviously you need a certain level of sodium. We're taught to think, oh, sodium is really, really bad for you. Salt's really bad for you. But for people struggling with POTS and other dysautonomic conditions, salt's actually really, really good. So upside, I get to eat super salty foods all the time.
Chips and French fries on the menu. Yeah.
You're taking all my salt. My cardiologist says no salt.
Okay, I'll take yours.
Yeah,
I'm eating salt for two.
Yeah, there you go.
For me and Doug. Yeah, and then other things like physical therapy, adjusting the way that I do things. I'm very stubborn, and it's taken me a while to understand that I'm just hurting myself if I keep trying to push through stuff. I've gotten a lot better about it. Kelsey would probably disagree. She knows
I'm
that,
like, she's sitting in the other room going, no,
No.
no.
she'd agree that I've made progress. She would not agree that I am, doing everything that I should be to take care of myself.
Well,
but I'm getting
that's
there.
so core to your personality, I'm sure. Ask anybody. Let's just change your entire personality. How's that going to work out, right? Yeah.
Well, life throws things at you, and you kind of just have to. You can lie down and give up, or learn to adjust. And I will not lie to you. There have been multiple times where I've been very, very tempted to lie down and give up. And the way that I cope with those moments is by listing the things that make me lucky, the things that I have that I'm so, so grateful for, and also reminding myself that, I'm allowed to be upset and frustrated because, this, to me, subjectively speaking, this is the worst thing I've ever experienced. But there are people out there who are dealing with so much worse, and they're doing incredible things. And so I'm like, you know what? Kind of pull yourself together, Liv. You can have 5 minutes to cry, and then we're going to just get back to it.
There's that personality.
Right, exactly.
So have you found a group that maybe you can go to once a week, once a month, whatever it is, and your people?
I found a lot of online communities. I would love to find something in person, and I'm definitely still working on that. I think probably Facebook would be the best place to find that. But Reddit, which usually is a cesspool of negativity, has weirdly been so, so helpful in this process, because there's just this whole community of people who are experiencing chronic illness. And it's just sharing about what they feel, what they're experiencing, and validating other people's experiences. And I can't tell you how hard I cried, months ago, scrolling through the POTS Reddit, because it was just like reading about myself and realizing that it wasn't just the fainting and the tachycardia, but there's so many other symptoms that go along with it. And
you were learning things about this new disease you have.
And another website that I would definitely recommend for anyone who's struggling with POTS or dysautonomia, or someone who loves somebody who has POTS or wants to learn more about it. There's a website called Awareness for Potsies, POTSIES, and that I found by accident. I just stumbled upon it because I was just, Googling. And it has so many different pages. It has, what is POTS? What causes it? What are some myths? There's a whole section about COVID-19 infections. And so, comorbid conditions. But there's also a whole section that's like what to do if you're traveling with POTS, what to eat, some daily tips and tricks.
Yeah, practical advice. I like it.
Yeah. And a whole section about mental health, about grief, about grieving what your life was before, about medical gaslighting. And then, sections about, like community stories, care packages, positive affirmations, and then a whole section devoted just to family members and friends to read and learn and know how to support. So I was blown away. There's so much work that's gone into this website, and that was really helpful for me. Obviously, POTS is just one puzzle piece for me, but just having that resource and knowing that it's out there, and that other people are feeling exactly the same way I am, has been helps. It sucks. I don't want other people to feel this, but it's selfishly making me feel much less alone.
Well, you're not an island anymore. No human is meant to be an island. And when you change or evolve into what you have become, like, how do you unisland? It takes time and personality and stuff, which kind of leads us to like closing it up and closing the circle, kind of, is that obviously there's a future, and we know some of it is unsure because we don't know exactly how it's going to look for you. But what are your hopes for the future and how this kind of evolves, both in like creating a life in the new body you have and, hopes for?
I think it's so cheesy, and I hated hearing people say this when I was like in the depths of dealing with this, but gratitude is like the biggest thing that I've learned I need to just appreciate what I have. I'm allowed to be angry and I'm allowed to have days where it doesn't feel like that's enough, but I have to pull myself back and focus on that gratitude. And another thing, just my experience, just, over the past 6 or so months, being, mobility impaired, being in a wheelchair, having to use a cane, just having to experience the world in a different way, needing to sit down constantly and not being able to go to certain places has opened my eyes to, I mean, I knew this before, how inaccessible the world is, but it really is something that you will never fully appreciate until you experience it yourself. And I wish that more people understood that it's not just about wheelchair ramps and, like handlebars in the bathrooms. There's so much more to it. It's wheeling myself into a bathroom in South Station, and there are other people using the wheelchair stall, and it's so tiny that I can't even wheel myself to get in. I can't close the door when my wheelchair's in there. It's not being able to maneuver around on my own in certain spaces just because they're not built for people like that. So my goal, and something that's like really empowering me to move forward right now, is to continue with the advocacy I've been practicing for many, many years in, as a social worker, but start to shift that more towards, instead of, like cognitive disabilities, which is what I've been working with, include physical disabilities as well. It's something I didn't have any experience with before, and I didn't feel like I had the knowledge base or the right to speak about. And now I'm like, well, I'm in it. Sometimes I feel like I'm taking up space from people who deserve to be here more. And I'm learning to sort of work with that feeling and understand that, it's not a competition of who's more disabled and who's less disabled. It's just about making the world accessible for everybody, regardless. So that is a huge thing for me. I think that's what's keeping me going right now, is the idea that I can get involved with that. I'm looking into, new fields and new positions that I could get into, that I can do with the body that I'm in now, but also focus on this passion and just sort of keep this fire going, because I'm also angry, and I feel like that anger is a good way to just sort of power through the hard parts and just channel that into being really, really productive.
Right. Productive anger.
So
yeah.
On behalf of the listeners, I'm going to ask you this question, because I'm sure they're wondering, after they've heard this entire story, are you back at work? Are you with the kids?
So I'm not. Yeah. And by the time this goes live, I will have officially put in my notice, which I'm pretty devastated about. My job is a huge part of who I am. I don't feel fulfilled unless I'm doing something every day that I feel like makes the world a better place. And I think, people were always like, oh, you're a youth trauma counselor, you're an angel, you're a hero. And I'm like, no, guys, it's super selfish. It's because I feel good about myself when I make other people feel good. And so, being able to help kids and do that every day was what was making me feel good. So as much as it sucks that I have to say goodbye to that, I'm excited that I'm now going to be taking a step forward from this limbo and be able to find my new place, my new spot where I can help other people, my new spot where I can make the world a better place, and sort of funnel everything that I've learned into, something productive. So no, I'm not back, and I miss my kids so much, and I will be saying goodbye to them, but I know that they are going to be so well taken care of by my team, and the person who will be replacing me, I already know she's like, next in line for the throne. So she's incredible, and these kids are going to be so lucky to have her. So I'm grateful for everything that this job taught me, and I am very sad, but very ready for the next step.
Well, just getting to know you for the last half hour, I'm sure you're going to find your spot. Somebody will be lucky to have you.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it. And I'm very, very honored to have just, you guys even wanted to chat with me. If you, get off this call and you're like, this was terrible, we're actually going to toss this in the trash.
Yeah,
no.
Don't worry. That's okay. But really just, just connecting with Addie in the first place and having a moment to just vent and listen to her vent and be like, oh my God, I know. And our experiences are so different in some ways, but so similar. So,
and that's a big part of, why I wanted to do this from the beginning is I feel like there's power in the stories. There's power for the storyteller, and there's so much good that can come from the person hearing the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you touched a lot of people today.
Yes.
Yeah,
And on that note, connecting you, do you have socials or different ways that people would connect with you if they're like, wow, I need help?
Yeah. And oh my God, I would love for people, if anyone listens and they're like, hey, I'm experiencing symptoms like that, or hey, I just got my POTS diagnosis, or hey, I've had POTS forever and, I have advice for you. My Instagram is O'Nells, so OKNELLS. And I have a Threads account connected to that. And so my profile is public. You can send me a message and say hi. Even if it's just to be like, hey, you talk a lot and you should work on that.
Hey, you should breathe between your sentences.
Thank goodness you talk a lot. That's what we need here.
Right? No. Awesome. Well, we've been so blessed to have you. I'm so glad that, Kelsey and was able to do the Connect the Dots.
Yeah, me too.
Spend time with you.
All right. Thanks for joining us on Walk and Roll Live.
Of course. I will talk to you again soon.
July is Disability Pride Month, a time to celebrate identity, resilience, and the beauty of living authentically. At Walk and Roll Live, we're proud to stand with the disability community, not just this month, but every day. Through powerful stories and real conversations, we shine a light on lived experiences that inspire change and build connection. Because pride isn't just a moment, it's a movement. Join us. Listen, share, celebrate. Walk and Roll Live. Life limitless.
From the Ugyar Professional Training Studios, you're listening to Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories.
All right, we're heading into our last segment of Walk and Roll Live for this week. What do you think of our interview with Liv Kneller?
I obviously love this story, and I love how the universe works. I tell you that all the time. That, I would happen to bump into my bestie's stepdaughter, who's now old, and I literally had not seen her since she was little. And we get to chit-chatting, and I mentioned podcasts, and she says, oh, my roommate. So I love how, 6 degrees of separation, right?
Yeah.
Which then brings us to Liv. And it's a fascinating story because of her pathway in life and how she already was a helper. And she didn't know that that helping would rotate full circle into needing a helper such as herself. I find it fascinating. And it's been really fun. We kind of mentioned, and I don't know if it makes it into the episode, but we've become friendly outside of recording this, which is really nice because I like the opportunity to mentor and help people. There were so many good people to me. I'm happy to pay it forward. So really nice to tell her story, but also good to be like, hey, it's going to be okay. And if there's a bad day that it sucks and you hate it, you can also say that and there's no judgment. So
Yeah.
Cool opportunity. And I think that the story, hopefully, and I know Liv hopes that it'll touch people and they feel like they can relate to somebody that might look like them or live a life that they used to and have a place.
August is Unseen Disability Month. Awareness Month. Yeah. And so hopefully we're going to do some episodes that kind of address that. But, I got to thinking that Liv probably falls under that, in day-to-day life. There isn't anything that's apparent, that she's going through all of this.
I mean, definitely in the beginning, right? When it was the back issue, that would have been true. Now, as she's become more disabled via the POTS and different scenarios, and she's using a chair more, but honestly, for many, many years, it hid in plain sight, right? Yeah. You and I, it's like a beacon of hi, we're different. We are. My favorite shirt that I have is a flamingo on the front, and it says majestically awkward. And that's me. That's my favorite shirt. Every time it pops up in the laundry, I'm like, oh, I need to wear this. Because no matter what you and I do, sitting this way, nobody sees it. Yeah. But no matter if you bump into us in person, and honestly, too, if you hear our voice and you don't realize it's us, there's a dissonance between you look like that.
I often wondered, because we did a lot of live broadcasts over my radio career, and they heard me day in and day out, on the radio. and you can't not have some kind of image form in your mind, and
I know, but it is that dissonance.
Is what?
The dissonance. The dissonance of what you have imagined you to be.
Yeah, that's where I was going. It's like, so I would see these people as they would meet me, and most people really I couldn't tell, but there were people that I could just tell the wheels are not turning. They're locking up in their mind where they're going.
They're recalculating.
They're like, you can just see them going, this is not what I thought I was going to see, and of course, I had a line for that, so I would say, I sound much taller on the radio, right? Because I'm like all of 5 feet tall,
Right.
But with this voice, I'm sure people are imagining at least 6,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're 6'5" in your brain. It's okay.
Yeah. But it's, I do want to mention that, with those unseen disabilities, just I want to raise awareness to that. You don't know what people, kind of an extension of that. You don't know what people are going through, and you can't make assumptions by the way they look. And I've had to learn that lesson over the years. When handicap placards first came out, I was kind of the militant guy that thought I needed to police it all, and I would see people
the police
drive up and get out of their car and, and I'd be
you're like, show me your limp.
Yeah, show me or whatever. Come on, start limping, do something.
Yeah.
But I've
do
gotten over
something
that.
to make you look that way. Yeah. No, think about it too. Even us meeting each other again, right? Because you saw me as a little girl and I saw you as a man. And so there is that dissonance of like, do we look like we thought we would look? Because your voice is exactly like it was. So
I'm still slightly irritated with the guy who has a handicap placard on his motorcycle.
Oh, yeah.
I look at that and go, man, I wish I got that disability. Darn it, and I can still ride a motorcycle.
Like, dude, you can hold up your motorcycle and
I could have ridden a bike, all kinds of stuff. All right. And next week we have Jeff Whittle, who is an old-time friend of mine. We did radio together for years. Yeah. And then he kind of made a transition, which I'm sure we'll get into how that all kind of worked. But he's transitioned pretty much all out of radio now. Probably like me, does some voiceover here and there, that kind of thing. But he started a gym.
Yeah.
And it's he calls it Silver Strong. And it's basically, I don't know if that's all he'll take, but I know it's a majority of his clientele is, folks who are older, and he's got a regimen of exercises that helps them stay mobile or become mobile or even rehab after accidents where they've lost some of their mobility to get it back. So we'll kind of get into all the details of that next week. Hey, and with Liv, we've put some more resources up on the resource page. I've found some others through some other sources, so I've thrown them up there. And one last thing on that, if you do me a favor, I try as much as I can to kind of double check the links, because there's a ton of them on there, and I'll go and make sure they're all still working, because sometimes websites go away or they change or whatever. So if you find one, let us know, and we'll get that all straightened out so that everybody has those resources. All right, is that it?
That's it.
That's all we got. There is no more.
There is no more.
Until next week. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Doug Vincent, with Addie Rich from the Aguiar Professional Training Studio. This has been Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories, Life Limitless.